You are listening to the podcast That's Life in Sweden, or as we say in Swedish, Sånt är livet i Sverige, with me, your host, Lisa Uusimäki. Today I want to welcome a very special guest. His name is Jarno Leppänen and he's a former Finnish teacher living in London. Hello Jarno, welcome to the podcast and how are you?
Thank you. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Can you share your reason for choosing to become a teacher?
I think that's a really good question. I was actually thinking about it. I guess the main kind of like push to go that direction was after my A-levels, sixth form in Finland, I had 1 year off so that I could kind of like construct and think what I want to do. In Finland and probably in Sweden, there's a huge pressure for students to decide quite early stages what they want to do, kind of like thinking for the rest of their lives, which is not obviously true, but you know, there's that pressure. So I didn't really want to jump into mine, you know, without actually thinking about it. And I ended up working in a local primary school, and at the same time I was teaching or coaching artistic gymnastics. So I guess that year kind of like started forming my ideas that I really want to do that. I had a few other options. One of the options was theology, religious studies, which is quite funny because I am not very religious, but that was something really interested me. And then one of the options was medical studies, which luckily I didn't go for, and I probably would have not even gotten in, but you know, I guess that was the kind of like main push. And while I was working, I was doing minor for the application process to get into uni and the teacher's education. I was doing minor in educational sciences, and it kind of like, yeah, it just strengthened the idea that, yeah, this might be my way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess kind of like the background there was the idea of like, you know, oh, I'm going to, you know, help the children and make the world a better place, and you know, all this.
Very idealistic.
These sort of things as well.
Yeah.
Very idealistic, yes.
So now, what made you then choose to leave Finland for London?
So it was a result of course, many different factors. And I guess kind of like there's no one definite answer why that happened. But it was kind of like how life formed its path. And the initial kind of like reason why I left was I came to study arts in the UK. So that was kind of like the initial kind of like turning point. But of course, I want to experience more and different things.
Mm-hmm. So you ended up leaving teaching, or did you at all teach in London, considering your teaching degree from Finland? So you haven't used it in London?
I have, but not in the extent as in Finland. So while I was studying here, and after I did I worked in educational institutions in London as well, mainly with SEN, so special educational needs.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day when I did my studies, my major, funnily enough, was psychology and educational psychology. Because usually the major for teachers in Finland is educational sciences. So and then I did one of my minor subjects. I'm specialized in special educational needs. So it kind of like pushed me in that direction. And So I did work in few different schools here in London as well, but not in the kind of like full-time extent. It was more kind of like substituting and every now and then.
You most recently you completed a master program on educational sustainable development via distance at the University of Gothenburg here in Sweden.
Mm.
And your thesis explored the perspectives of a cohort of British fashion professionals who also are educators about the link between sustainability and education for sustainable development. What made you choose the topic?
After moving to London, and as I mentioned, I came here for the sake of arts. I got involved with fashion
Okay.
and in fashion. So for let's say the past 9 years, I've been mainly working full-time working in fashion, and it was kind of like a natural way regarding this topic to choose the topic because the fashion was at the background, and then the education, side of me as well. So it was a combination of these two quite important and interesting topics, which had been theming my recent years. So it was kind of like combination of these two, and I share a business, fashion business, with my business partner, and it's a small business, so basically everything. Of course, when I say everything, it doesn't mean everything, but because we are a small business, we get to do several different things regarding
Right.
fashion and the different areas in fashion. So I would love to say that I design. Yes, I do design, but also many other things on top of that.
Okay.
If I could have decided, I probably would have gone more on the sustainability and sustainable fashion direction. However, I have to say that it's really good and eye-opening to have the educational element included.
So, what do you mean by sustainable fashion?
Oh, this is a good one. I was actually thinking about this. So I would say that what do I mean if I could get to kind of like define what it is? I would say emperor's new clothes. You know the story of the emperor who um, there's the designer who convinces him basically walk around wearing any clothes and praises him. Oh, you look great. So it would be that. Ideally, it would be that. I would say that it doesn't actually exist at all. Sustainable fashion is because it has not been really defined. There's no actual real common definition what sustainable fashion is. Hence, it means that it could be anything, it could be everything, and it's always based on the current climate and the definition. It's always slightly dependent on the person's or the company's idea of it.
You interviewed some really interesting individuals.
I had a group of 7 people from various backgrounds within the fashion industry. If we think about the whole cohort, I had fashion designers, fashion stylists, fashion lecturers, fashion production experts, and then experts from sales. And yeah, the common kind of like nominator, of course, fashion, and the fact that all of these people also were involved within fashion education somehow. Some full time and more extensively than the others.
Mhm. So were they educators in higher education or informal education?
Higher education.
Was there anyone who to you were really interesting?
Yeah, well, all of them, of course. That's why they were there. But if I can like have to handpick, I would say that particularly maybe one participant who has extensive career within fashion, decades. And I always find it really interesting when you have a person with lots of experience and lots of insights and lots of history, and someone who's seen the change, and especially regarding if we talk about sustainability and within fashion, because it's kind of like a fairly new thing as it is. It's interesting to hear insights of the change, how it used to be, and how we got into this stage and this point we are at the moment. So, well, in short, we had a long conversation, very long conversation, lots of stories and insights of the fashion industry from this person's point of view. So how it has changed because of the sustainability agenda or sustainable fashion agenda. According to this participant, it has had a huge effect on the way how designers design, and not necessarily in a good way. So this sustainable fashion agenda kind of like restricts the design choices, the materials, and so on. So I think that was kind of like a very interesting take and insight to this. And I think it's very kind of like, if we think about fashion industry, I think it's quite I think these sort of opinions, they have room, because we think about industry, it's fashion industry, it's a creative industry, but also you have the manufacturing industry side of it, which is problematic side. Design per se, of course it has an effect on the results, but it's a creative, it's it's something where, as we say, that only the sky is limits. And of course, if we think about it, the sustainable fashion agenda kind of like limits it from this point of view.
So, okay, and so there was one person who had years, decades of experience,
Yes.
and was the person actually against the term sustainability or the actual idea of sustainability?
So no, not against the idea of sustainability, no, but the way how it's been implemented, maybe more from because as an idea, this person thought that it's a good thing, of course. However, the way how it's been applied within the industry, it's problematic from this participant's point of view.
Right. Was there anyone else of the participants you found of particular interest?
Yeah, maybe one more kind of like handpicked one. One participant, very academic, very insightful regarding these themes within the industry. However, more from the kind of like management and admin side of education, higher education and fashion education. And we was this participant, I think, offered very nice, knowledgeable and insightful contrast to the more kind of like hands-on manufacturing side of the fashion industry. This person was really knowledgeable, and raised actually many points which made me think as well. And this person, again, maybe
Right.
pro sustainability and the agenda, but very, very against of the, I don't know, should I really say against? But yeah, I can say really, really against of the terms we operate, which is education for sustainability. And this participant mentioned that, for example, in their educational institutions, they try to avoid using these words. And why is that? Because these words, these agendas, they have quite a negative baggage on them.
Right.
They push a lot of people away, which is very, very interesting insights. I would imagine that there's lots of money, there's lots of political decision making involved, and so on and so on. So probably, indicating that within the decision making process and the finances and the operations behind these institutions, these terms are not very favorable. I would say that how sustainability and sustainable fashion and ESD, and why I mention ESD is because it was part of the small study I conducted. They're very complex topics to comprehend, and it's quite surprising how well known, how not well known they are. People know something about it, of course, about sustainability more, but especially ESD. Most of my participants never had heard about it, and it's interesting to me because when we think about that way these terms and ideas kind of like derive, and I would say that they come from UN, United Nations, and it's a huge organization, and it's kind of like the umbrella organization for these things. And regardless of that kind of like influence and the efforts to promote these terms and ideas within my research, the participants I interviewed, they weren't very well acknowledged, and my kind of like question would be that these terms, ESD, sustainability, and even sustainable development goals, because they are huge agenda, maybe even very political agenda. Maybe they should be slightly simplified. Obviously, this is not finding, but this is just my own thought. Maybe they are too complex and too complicated to be applied and promoted as they are. They are very controversial terms and subject matters. They evoke many kind of positive, mainly positive, but also very negative ideas and feelings in the participants. And yeah.
Can you provide examples? What were some of the positives and what were the negatives?
Yeah, so basically, so of course we have to remember that we talk about this regarding in the context of fashion education. So I think probably the strongest one was that it's completely rubbish. It's useless, and we shouldn't really do it as a kind of like a pushed agenda. It should be more up to the individual studying how they take it on. And then the more positive ones were like, yeah, I really need to take more this account in my professional work and find out more. Maybe kind of like the most collective positive thing was that everybody agreed that something must be done. And according to my participants, the best way to, in their opinion, to proceed is to legislate things, is to set laws. And I think it's quite a positive kind of like response to these things. But then again, I think it also tells the something about the confusion when we talk about like legislating and putting up laws regarding sustainability and ESD. It tells that it is an issue which should be addressed, but maybe because of the complexity, there is maybe no tools and maybe no kind of like way to push it forward. So it was very encouraging in that sense that it was acknowledged that it's very important, how regardless of the negative ideas and feelings. Like I said, it seems to be very, very complex. And I guess kind of like, again, this is my own kind of like ideas and thoughts based on this, is that it could be also the fact that, like I've been mentioning a few times, that sustainability agenda and political agenda and the political weight on it, and it probably also includes some sort of activism. And when we kind of like go to this kind of like especially within education, if there is something political, it's very, very divisive. It's very, very divisive. I'm not sure if how they fit in the education framework. Yeah. Maybe like from my point of view, when I talk about this as well, as you know, the sustainability, it's called slightly different in Finnish, but it's very heavily and importantly implemented national curriculum. I think it was introduced in 2014, and soon there will be a new one. And sustainability and sustainable education, not sustainability, excuse me, education for sustainable development, it had a really, really heavy emphasis on it, and it confused many teachers. And it's an interesting era in the Finnish education system, and I think that would be a really, really interesting topic for someone to touch into and research, and because I'm sure that there's lots of data and so on. And I would be personally interested in how the implementation of ESD could have and potentially have affected on the education system, and especially the maybe performance. I'm not sure if performance is the right word, but performance of the students, because there's lots of data, and it seems that it has been very confusing process. So I guess what I'm trying to kind of like communicate here is that it's from my perspective, the ESD agenda and when it's implemented in education, it should be very, very clear what it is and what the aims are, and probably how to do it as well, and whether it is within like in fashion education, it is exactly your personal strength and knowledge regarding sustainability of your own subject matter. It's a very, very interesting, I think, interesting topic, because it's yet so confusing, but yet so very simple, because it kind of like already exists and it's there. But the way, again, I'm using the sustainability or ESD agenda, how it's pushed, it's very, very confusing. It's very confusing. And the thing is that human beings, we don't like confusing things. We like quite simple things. It makes things life much easier.
Yes. Now, and I'm thinking here about now there's a fashion trend today that has shifted towards recycling, as we can see when we visit, for example, H&M, where there is a separate section for secondhand clothes. But we have not really even if we all want to talk about it, seen the end of fast fashion. So what do you think? What is your suggestion to discourage fast fashion?
I think this is a really, really good and interesting question. And I've been thinking about this for quite a few years. And my question is that, do we really need to discourage it, or could we kind of like because it's kind of like a necessity. I don't know if I think the change should come from the innovation. It's kind of like same question. Or same question, same thing. If we think that discourage driving or discourage eating meat, they are very, very valid things to think about, because there are many things which contribute to the climate emergency. However, because as systems, they are so fundamentally part of our daily operations, I think it's kind of like likely kind of like utopistic and utopia to think that if we could kind of like get rid of them. I don't think so. I'm not sure. Of course, it's discouraging. I'm not sure if it's needed, but change definitely is needed. And I think regarding fast fashion and the fashion industry in general, the change will come when there's innovation. This is my kind of like a personal, probably controversial idea, but I think the main change comes when someone develops a fiber which is 90% more sustainable, whatever we mean with the sustainable. Here we have the kind of like the problematic of the term sustainability again, because in my opinion, when we use the word sustainable, and especially when we compare, is this brand or is this piece of garment more sustainable than the other, we should be able to measure it, because it's kind of like giving value, more sustainable, less. Why is this more sustainable, and so on. But let's say that there's a fiber which requires less water, in the process, and less chemicals, and it's more sustainable in that sense. So I think through these sort of innovations, it will change. And of course, we could think circularity, recycling garments, and so on. But also these things, they need heavy investment and innovation. I might be wrong, but I dare to claim that currently there's no like solutions for these in bigger scale. And it's kind of like oxymoron. I think it's an interesting again, going back to the heavy baggage and the negative kind of like connotation of these words, because it kind of like guilt trips people. And I think it's slightly questionable if you don't have a choice, right? If you don't have a choice to go to work, if you live in countryside in Finland or Sweden and you have to drive 50 kilometers to work, and if you don't have funds to buy, again, controversial words, more sustainable fashion, whatever that means, you have to buy fast fashion. There's no choice. But I would say that these sort of things, it's innovation, 100%. And there is no fast solution to reduce fast fashion. And I don't think we should per se reduce fast fashion per se, but find solutions how to make it more sustainable, again the word, but more eco-friendly, more friendly to the environment and people involved within it.
Artificial intelligence, while it can be seen as a force for good, it is also concerning because there is the problem. AI has the potential of replicating ideas and maybe improving a little bit. And then, and this can be based on an upcoming designer's ideas that hasn't even hit the street as yet. And using then artificial intelligence to reproduce without the person's or the individual's consent materials or new ideas. So there is a talk about that. That's why it's important to have regulation, not only to protect workers' creativity and their copyright. What do you think of that?
I think AI. Obviously, I'm not a professional regarding AI, but I think there's lots of possibilities, especially within the creative industry, and the potential, probably from my point of view, would come to play when we think about the processes and the workflow of designing and the workflow of video editing or whatever area of creativity we are thinking applying AI to. It might make things quicker and faster. So I think in that sense, it would help a lot. However, kind of like completely relying, let's say, designing on AI, I would exactly raise the same questions as you did, the copyrights, not only for emerging designers and designers, but only AI's sake, because I think there's a huge question mark if you create something using AI and you claim that it is your work. I think that raises lots of questions and gray areas. And as we know, like you mentioned, AI is trained based on the existing material, whether it's music or imagery. So feed imagery, and they learn and learn and learn. So basically everything what AI uses is based on already existing material, and it's somebody else's work. I've played around with AI, and I've had images coming up with parts of someone's signature. So it's like, when artists, when they sign their paintings, there's a signature. So it's an interesting new addition. But I do think that it could be extremely helpful and beneficial, depending how it's used and what is the kind of like the morale when we use it. And I'm sure that many industries, creative industries, are already using it. Not sure if they're very transparent about it, but yeah.
Talking like a teacher. So, what are you doing for summer? Are you working right through, or are you going to have a bit of a break? You are working full time, which you have done all along. So, are you going to give yourself some holidays?
So at some point, yeah. Currently, we have not very sustainably a new collection coming up.
Yes.
And I mean, not sustainably in that sense that fashion is very, you have to push new collection after new collection. Obviously, you don't have to if you can find a way around it, but that's the state currently for us. So we have a new collection coming up, and lots of things must be done and arranged regarding that, photo shoots and line sheets, and then prepare the collection for sale. So after that, which probably is within the next two weeks, tiny bit of a break, and then back to the back trying to steer the car. Of course, in this case, probably electric car. So
Thank you so much for your time and for sharing with me your ideas about education for sustainability and and sustainability in fashion and your thesis, and the conversation has been really great. Thank you, Jarno.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And you have been listening to the podcast Sånt är livet i Sverige, or in English, That's Life here in Sweden, with me, Lisa Åsimäki. Till next time, take care of yourself and each other. Bye for now.